Hey everybody, it's Dave here, Darren over there. We're your two old bloggers, over 2 decades each, talking publicly about your Minnesota Vikings. We are here today in your bye week to talk some Vikings. But first, we want to thank you for coming. I know you're watching college football or doing something nice out on the lake one last time, fishing, hiking, camping, doing whatever, because it is the bye week. But you're here listening to us, and we appreciate that. Today, we have 3 themes as usual. First one we're going to start out with is you are what your record says you are. But are you? That's a good question. Secondly, we're going to get into what kind of offense is the Minnesota Vikings, right? We all expected this high-flying pass, happy, just go down the field type of scheme. But are we that? That's a good question. We'll get into that as well. Then we're going to hit up with the bye week quick hitters. Why? Because we got a few of them, and they are outstanding so far, and we'll get into that. With that, this is 2 old bloggers. Let's get it started. And this is absolutely wonderful. The Roland says, can't find the file. What a great start to the show today. Where is my intro stuff? Looking here, looking here. Let's look at 2OB. And I love when stuff does not work as we anticipated it. And it's not going to work. So much for the Roland today. I will have to figure out why that didn't work. Darren, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, but I love that roll-in thing, Dave. So it's disappointing that we didn't have that to get things rocking and
I
rolling,
know
get people pumped up.
the
Just, damn.
heavy
Oh,
beats,
well,
yes.
they'll just have
Hello,
to deal
Andrew.
with us now.
Hello, Jarrell. How are you guys doing this week? Don't have to worry pulling any teeth. That is correct. Tomorrow, Sunday, we can watch football. We can go out shopping. We can go to the restaurant. We can drink more and more alcohol like we tend to do. But we're not going to have heart attacks or pulling teeth on a Sunday because your Minnesota Vikings have the bye week. Yes.
Can't lose this week, David. Stress-free football watching Sunday and Monday for Viking fans. This is always one of my favorite weeks of the football season, unless the Vikings are doing shitty, and then I'm just grinding my teeth because they lost the last game going into the bye, and I'm pissed off about that. But that did not happen last week, and so I'm as happy as a clam right now.
Yep, and let's get this started. We titled the show Vikings Direction, ? What direction are they moving in? Obviously, they're 5-1, which is better than last year. So it's a good question. What are they moving in? Our first theme of the day.
Oh, that one works, David.
Is going to be, you wanted to talk about, not Bill Parcells yet, but this young man, Aaron Schatz.
What were you going to call him, David? Were you going to call him this shit? Yeah.
It comes
anyway.
close, just one letter.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, for I don't know, for our viewers out there, most of them are diehard football fans, I'm sure they know about the Football Outsider site and its analytics take on things. And this week, Aaron Schatz had come out with in his weekly DVOA write-up. He pointed out that according to the Football Outsiders analytic, its stats and their site, they took a look at the Vikings and the Giants and determined that that the Vikings are one of the worst 5-1 teams in DVOA history. So they looked at ran the numbers. We're one of the worst. Us and the Giants right now are both 5-1. We
Yeah,
both
but
rank
we're
as one of the
better than the Giants.
better than the Giants overall. The Aaron's the Football Outsiders DVOA has us ranked 17th, which is very mediocre. They don't consider us a very good football team, despite the 5-1 record. And I think they have, but again, that's DVOA, that's the analytics look at things. But as Bill
That's their
Parcells,
algorithm, how they
that's
measure
their
things.
how they measure things. But when you look at, as Bill Parcells once said, and that famous saying, "You are what your record says you are," and the Vikings' record is 5-1, and that is first place in the NFC North with a 2-game lead on that team from Wisconsin. It also has them as the second seed right now in the NFC and only 1 game behind the Eagles, although they would lose the tiebreaker if both teams had the same record because they lost the head-to-head, I believe. So, uh, hey, 5-1, DVOA, Football Outsiders thinks we're a mediocre team. Our record says the opposite. I think that there is good reason to have some skepticism about the Vikings record and the 5-1 record that they have, other than their season opening win against that team from Wisconsin. David, I think we could both agree that they haven't really won convincingly uh, any other time.
No, but
Yeah.
as all right, here's the NFC North. We've got a plus 21 differential, and differential tends to show you how good the team is. Roughly, you can see every team in the NFC North is negative. So we're good on that mark. And then we're obviously quite a bit behind the Eagles, but we're ahead of the 5-1 Giants and the Dallas Cowgirls. So it's a good thing.
It is a good thing, David, and nobody's gonna no Viking fan. Well, some do, but I'm not one of those who's going to complain about a 5-1 record. The wins are great, no matter how we get them. I do have some concerns, but I think after 6 games, I think we have enough data right now to kind of look at and to assess kind of what team the Vikings are. What do they do well? What do they not do well? And take a look at that, because you've got 6 games of data to look at now. I think that's a large enough sample size to draw some conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to talk about what has gone right for the Vikings so far this season. And I think the first thing is health. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's been a key so far. If you look at the 29 Vikings players who play significant roles on the team, whether they be starters or backups, only 2 of those players, Harrison Smith and DJ Wonnum, have missed a game. And Harrison Smith missed 1 game because he was in concussion protocol, and DJ Wonnum missed last week because he got an illness. And neither of those injuries are long-term things.
Mm-hmm.
I expect DJ Wonnum will be back suiting up next week. But that's tremendous, because if you as a football team have your starters available to play as many snaps as you want them to play, David, that's got to be an advantage, because you're not relying on backups, guys that you don't want to play very much, to play larger roles against opponents.
I agree
Um,
100%.
so that's a big advantage, and it that health, we'll see if that holds out for the rest of the year. But if you looked every week so far at the Viking injury report compared to their opponents, the Vikings are having only like 3 or 4
Mm-hmm.
guys on the
Vikings.
list. Yeah, and then last week Miami had like 20 guys on, and every week the Vikings injury report looks vastly shorter and smaller than their opponents, which
Which
means
comes
that
from science.
well, it's looking that way. I mean, you've got the picture of Terrell Williams there, who's the director of player performance and health for the Vikings. Kevin O'Connell brought him over this year, and how the Vikings' health has shook out so far in the season, I think lends a lot of credence to Kevin O'Connell and Williams's kind of load management approach to the preseason to training camp. In preseason, the starters pretty much didn't play at all. The only one who played a lot was Ed Ingram, and he wasn't really even considered a
Right.
starter at that point. He was fighting for a starting job. Other than that, the starters didn't really play. In training camp, hitting, high intensity was the high intensity, a lot of hitting. That was not
Way
happening.
down,
Uh,
and
way
padded
down.
practices were way
Yeah,
down, and
it was
hmm
all mapped out by O'Connell and Terrell Williams, and
Tyler Williams.
sorry, Tyler Williams, and it looks like it's working very well. So that is, that's been a plus. Health has been a plus for the Vikings so far. I think another thing
Hey
that's really
there,
gone
Niner.
well for them. Another thing that's really gone well for the Vikings is that they've been a disciplined team that's not taking penalties.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Now, if you look at right now, you've got it up there. 25 penalties assessed so far. That's the second fewest total in the league. Only the LA Rams have less, and they have 24. Again, fewest yards of penalties assessed. And their opponents have taken almost have taken a lot of
hmm
penalties so far. The Vikings not taking a lot of penalties is a big switch from last year, Mike Zimmer's team, because they took 111. They had 111 penalties assessed last year in 2021. That was 26th in the or
hmm
sorry, that was that was very high. They were like
Right.
sixth or so in the I think they were eighth. That was the eighth highest amount of penalties in the league last year. Now, taking a lot of penalties doesn't always mean you're going to be a bad team. The Buffalo Bills last year had 113 that were assessed, and we know that they were a pretty good team last year. But when you're the Vikings right now, you're playing one score games. The games are tight. The margin of between winning and losing is very small. I think that the fact that the Vikings are not killing themselves by taking multiple penalties during the game is helping them get those wins, those close
hmm
wins that we've seen. You can kind of look last week. What was that ridiculous? I think it was the second series the Dolphins had. They took like five penalties in a row on offense, and they went from being like in position to score to they were by the end of it they were out of like field goal range. And I think last year, if you look, remember how many times, David, where the offense would be on the field, they get something going, then there'd be an like usually like a holding call on the offensive line.
Yes.
It's first and
Oliudo
20.
holding, right?
Yeah, a
Boom,
lot of
marching
times.
back 10 yards, right? It could be 3rd and 2. Oliudo holding. And then what happens next? Somebody jumps off sides. 5 more yards, right? And now we're looking at from 3rd and 2, we just went to 3rd and 18. And what did the Vikings do next?
They dump it off to CJ Ham.
For 3 yards. Or they did run a draw for 2, right? And it was just,
Yeah.
it would drive you absolutely bananas.
Even
But we don't
when
have that
those
this year so
penalties,
far.
no, they're not happening so far. Even when the Vikings, many times I can remember the Vikings would get a penalty. Like I said, it would be holding. It'd be first and 20. They never seemed to be able to overcome a first and 20. They had to stay on schedule, or otherwise it was a 3-and-out. So again, this offense has looked like it isn't able to overcome those kind of down and distance situations either so far. So but the fact that they've been not killing themselves with penalties and getting themselves into holes by ending up being first and 20 or second
Mhm.
and 20 or third and 12 because they got a 10-yard holding penalty. Again, it's
It helps.
they're it helps. They're not killing themselves. So
What
that
also
that
helps
discipline is helping.
is these guys.
Yes, what's also gone right for the Vikings has been the schedule they've had, the teams they've played, and when they have played them. David, uh, the Viking schedule has been, let's be charitable, not difficult so far.
For the most
The
part, yes.
For the most part, they've the combined record of the opponents that they've played so far is 17 and 19, and they've also played, as which you've got up here, a pretty mediocre slate of quarterbacks that they've faced. Justin Fields, Jared Goff, Skylar Thompson / Teddy Bridgewater, Andy Dalton. And they did play Aaron Rodgers and handled him quite well. But when you're playing those kind of
I should
quarterbacks,
have put him up there.
you're
My
playing those
bad.
kind of quarter.
Sorry.
Yeah, when you're playing those kind of quarterbacks, David, and you're playing teams who aren't that great, and you've got some of the frontline talent that the Vikings have, you should be winning 4 or 5 of your first 6 games, I think. And the Vikings have done that. But they have been fortunate, played a backup quarterback a couple of times now, actually played a third stringer last week. You can imagine what the Vikings' chances of winning a game would be if Kirk Cousins gets knocked out, can't play, and we got to put Nick Mullins in there. Nothing against Nick Mullins. I think he'd be solid, but he's not as good as Kirk Cousins. He'd be a downgrade, and that would hurt the Vikings offense considerably. So the quarterbacks we faced, the schedule we have faced has been something that's gone right for the Vikings. And the good news is that really the schedule on paper anyway, David, it doesn't get any tougher. Like
Mm-hmm.
we've got a pretty good schedule on paper the whole season. And that's a plus. I think one thing also, final thing that I'm going to discuss that the Vikings have gotten right is that situationally they've been pretty strong so far. Kevin Seifert did a story about this week on ESPN. He did it. It was excellent actually. He highlighted all kinds of reasons that why the Vikings have been 5-1 even when by the eye test, they don't look like that kind of dominant team. But, a few things. They've scored 59 points the last 4 minutes of the first half. That's tops in the NFL.
Number one. Where
Number
were
one.
we last year? We were 32nd in that.
Which is last.
Mm.
So that's a huge turnaround from last year. They've averaged 8.5 points scored in the fourth quarter of games this year. That's 5th in the NFL. So they're excelling in scoring points late in the game, which is huge when you've got tight ball games. The special teams has played well under first year coordinator Matt Daniels. They're in the top 6 both in punt return coverage and in kickoff return coverage. And so
they're number one in field position, right? Be it punting or kicking or whichever one. Setting up, they're number one in that this year. There are good things.
There sure are. And I think
your
that
puppy.
Yes, somebody's close by the door. But David, if this were like happening for 1 or 2 games, you'd consider it was a fluke. But it's 6 games now, and I think that suggests that this is not a fluke. It looks like Kevin O'Connell and his staff are focusing on these things, late game situations, situational football. They focused on them in the off season during training camp, and obviously they must be continuing to do it during the season, and the Vikings, because of that, the Vikings are doing well in these areas, and so I think that indicates that this isn't a fluke, that this is the kind of team that the Vikings are right now and are going to continue to be during the season.
And we'll highlight that in the next 2 sections as well. Andrew, you asked, but should we be blowing them away? No. I'm thinking yes. From what we expected, yes. But we'll get in more of that in the second theme of the day. But first, I don't know if you've noticed, but way up there in the left-hand corner, there's a new logo. It's That's Badass wood art. If I could speak, too much whiskey already or not enough. Here we have Lewis, who came to us wanting to help sponsor the show. He creates, he is a scroll saw artist. Literally, he is. If you want something that is cool looking, right, that you can hang on the wall, that's made of wood, he works his scroll saw magic and different stains and different gels that he puts on the wood to make absolutely outstanding pieces. He's got a whole list on his website, and I'll throw that up here just now, on his website of celebrities that have loved his wood art and that have purchased it to have in their own collections. Well, he's here now with Climb in the Pocket. And if you wish to go to his website, that's badasswoodart.com, you can go there and check out what he's got. He's got from simple skull signs to Skull Vikings, that bigger one you have there, to Randy Moss doing the moon in Green Bay, which we all absolutely love, to the gritty, all sorts of ones, and he can do custom ones, and you can get 20% off that purchase, which would be outstanding. I need to get one to put back here somewhere amongst my art. And you know, I appreciate art. I do my own. Lewis is the man. So if you want some wood art for that man cave, right? So you can put it in your living room if you wish. If your wife's cool with that, that's fine. But it is something that you're going to cherish and keep for a long, long time and isn't going to wear. It's made of wood. So he does great jobs and absolutely outstanding stuff. And he has joined the Climb in the Pocket team, and we are glad to have him. Welcome, Lewis. And get your wood
Welcome
art
indeed.
at that'sbadasswoodart.com. Now, to the second theme. We are going on from here to talking about Kevin O'Connell when he was first hired, and what did we expect? What kind of offense has the Vikings become?
David, yes, when O'Connell got hired, which seems like a long time ago, not really, but coming over from the Super Bowl winning Los Angeles Rams with the Sean McVay, we assumed Sean McVay influenced offense. We were looking for, that after 8 years of Mike Zimmer
Mm-hmm.
ground and pound, wanting to run the ball all the time. We were really looking forward to Kevin O'Connell bringing an exciting, different kind of offense, high flying, more passing, more explosive, more points, more wins for the Vikings, not so conservative. So again, after 6 games in the season with the Vikings on the bye, I thought it was a good time to kind of assess the Vikings offense under Kevin O'Connell now, what it's looking like, what kind of offense that we have, that we're going to do that here now. And I think
Mm-hmm.
the assumption was that Kevin O'Connell was going to come over and the Vikings were going to throw more, perhaps a lot more. They were going to air it out, and that's turned out to be true. Kind of, I think they've gone there this year so far through 6 games. They've passed 64% of the time on their offensive plays, which is I was checking on it right now, and that is sixth. That's sixth most in the NFL right now, throwing 64% of the time.
What did
Last
they throw
year,
last year?
last year they threw 58
Hmm,
0.5% of the time on offensive plays, which was, I believe, it was 18th in the NFL.
middle
So,
ish.
so the Vikings have the Vikings were at the Tennessee Titans last year, or the Philadelphia Eagles, who ran the ball. It was a pass run was 50-50. So Kevin O'Connell has come over, and as expected, the Vikings are throwing the ball more. Uh, Hey, Gerald, what's happening? We're talking Vikings here. But
He's from New
uh,
Jersey. Hey,
New
Gerald.
Jersey, yeah. So throwing the ball more, but I think that the surprising thing is some of the other numbers that I was looking at to do with that. And so um, with throwing the ball more, Justin Jefferson now has become the focal point of the offense, I think, and not Dalvin Cook. Certainly the focal point of the passing offense, but overall, I think the offense, when it's going well, it's because Justin Jefferson is getting involved and he's making catches, and we're moving the ball by getting the ball into his hands. Whereas previous years since Dalvin Cook arrived and when he's been healthy, it's been
It was
more.
always.
It's all about feeding Dalvin with handoffs and screen passes. But surprisingly, though, like Justin Jefferson is not getting targeted significantly more this year under Kevin O'Connell than he was last year. This year, he's had 63 targets his way and he's got 46 catches. Last year, he had 59 targets thrown his way through 6 games and he had 41 catches. So a little bit of an uptick there, but not a huge amount. Where surprisingly, where we're throwing the ball more, a lot more than last year, is to tight ends. Irv Smith, Johnny Munt, and Ben Ellefson. We've targeted them for some reason 54 times, and it's resulted in 34 catches. Or sorry,
You
yeah.
said surprisingly, and that sort of caught me off guard. Why is it surprising that we're throwing the tight ends?
Well, I think the reason is it's a bit surprising, David, is because um, is that the tight ends aren't doing very much with the catches that they're making. Like Irv Smith has 18 catches for a measly 140 yards. Johnny Munt's got 11 catches and he's just got over 70 yards on those catches.
Wow.
And then Ben Ellefson's got like 3 catches for like 26 yards and he's on the IR, so we're not going to be seeing him for a while.
For
But
2 or 3 more weeks maximum, I would think. He went on the IR with a groin pull, suffered in practice.
yeah, we've targeted the Vikings tight ends 20 more targets compared to last year, but not
Interesting.
very much production. On the other hand, the running backs we're not dumping off to the running backs, checking down to them nearly as much as we did last year. This year they've Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison, they've only been targeted 16 times for 12 catches. Last year, it was 33 targets and they had
Wow.
29 catches. That's a significant amount reduction in who we're throwing to. Another guy
Well,
who's not.
and as
Go
we
ahead.
look at this as to what's different between this year and last year, that's significant because when we came into this year, we figured the running backs would be part of the pass game.
Yep. There was a lot of talk about that. You're right, David, especially how Dalvin Cook, how this offense would make him even more of a threat
Mm-hmm.
offensively, or how the Vikings would use him in the passing game. Well, right now, the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell aren't using him very much at all in the passing game, which is a bit surprising. And we'll see if that changes. But another guy who's not really benefiting from the offense right now is KJ Osborne. Last year, through 6 games, he was a surprise breakout
Mm-hmm.
candidate. It was a good surprise, but he had been targeted 35 times and he had 26 catches. This year, he's been targeted 26 times and he's got 19 catches. That's been so significantly down. Dave's cradling his whiskey. Going to have another shot of it, I think. And the other guy there in the picture, Adam Thielen, he's starting to show his age a little. Um, he's still getting
Unfortunately.
targeted. Yeah, he's still getting targeted about roughly about the same amount. Um, but he's and 21 of his 29 catches have been for first down, so that's good. But he's only averaging 9.8 yards per catch, and his longest catch is for 22 yards so far. And actually, Thielen hasn't caught a ball that's went for more than 35 yards since 2020. So right now,
Really? Wow.
Adam Thielen is more of a possession receiver who moves the chains when you get it to him, but he doesn't beat you deep. So
More
there's a
like
few
a
things
late,
there.
late career Chris Carter.
Yes, and maybe, but not quite as productive. Although Adam At has caught a lot of touchdowns the past 2 years, so we got to give him that.
And he's caught them this
Um,
year, too.
yeah, when they've thrown to him, the
When they
offense
throw to him,
offensively,
that's the
yeah,
key.
offensively, David. I think if you've any Vikings fan who's watched the game so far probably has noticed that the explosive plays have not really been there. They've been there at key times, like last week when JJ caught that, huge pass that set up a touchdown run, or when Dalvin Cook finally broke a long run and got a touchdown to, put the game out of reach. But overall, the team's averaging 23.2 points per game. That's 14th in the league right now. Last year they were 14th in the league too, and they averaged a couple of points more per game than what they're doing so far this year. But scoring is down overall in the NFL, not just with the Vikings.
which is strange, and it has to be because the defense is going to the too high, shut down the passing game, which has got to irritate the boys in New York that run the NFL because the whole idea is to have high scoring, exciting games.
It is true. They finally got one on Thursday Night Football after Snooze Fest the week before. But there could be various. People are going to have different theories about why the Vikings offense really hasn't been as explosive as we were hoping and expecting, maybe. But I think I don't know.
Could part of that be communication? They're still getting down the communication of the new system, right? Last week we saw Kirk Cousins throw an air ball to where he thought Justin Jefferson was going to be. Justin Jefferson ran a quick hitch, turned around, and Kirk thought he was going to run to the flat. And there was a miscommunication there. Kirk got a little vocal on the sidelines. Kevin O'Connell, who's pictured here, came over and talked to him, and everything was nice and cool. Unlike with Mike Zimmer, who would have ignored him or yelled at him. There's a difference there. But the whole point of not how to react to Kirk being upset was the fact that there was a communication type of deal. We still think there's room for improvement, and we've seen it, especially on the offense, as to how they can, well, on both sides of the ball for that matter, but how they communicate and how well they mesh. If that gets better, if they work on that over this bye week, now most of them are on vacation, but the coaches are self-scouting. If they work on that and get that better and better and better as we go on with our schedule especially, the Vikings have a chance. We know they're 5-1 now, right? That's the big deal. We are what our record says. We're 5-1. We look at the stats and go, yeah, we're 5-1, but the stats are pretty much the same as last year and the year before, right? And even the year before, but we're around that 500 middle of the pack type stuff. But what we see this year is we're there, that middle of the pack stats. We've obviously got the wins. Trust me, folks, wins are the most important stat.
Wins trump all.
Yep. But we're still sitting there, but we're seeing that, hey, the issues that we're having look to be communications issues, look to be we're not quite comfortable with the system yet. It's a new system we're learning. Once we get better, we're going to go into, like Andrew said, should we be blowing them out? Yes, I think once all that gets ironed out, I think we're going to see more production on the offensive side, not just in the last, 2 minutes of the first half and the last 2 minutes of the second half, which has been absolutely outstanding. Thank Odin that we have it, because last year we didn't. But I think over the whole approach of the game, we will see that, and we will not get our butts kicked like we did in the Eagles game early. I think this has the opportunity, and I give it the opportunity because nobody knows what's going to happen. But I give it the opportunity that this can step up and get better and better and better and better as they get more comfortable, more better at communication, more knowing where to go, when to go, how to go, all that stuff. And we'll get into the O-line in the third segment just on that same sort of stuff. And it's defense and offensive side. And it's all down to the young man over there, our coach, Kevin O'Connell.
I also wonder, David, if for him on the play calling side is maybe one of the issues is that he still hasn't. He didn't call the plays in Los Angeles. That's well known by everybody. And maybe I think he's an inexperienced play caller by NFL standards. And I think that like anything, maybe he hasn't found his groove yet on calling plays, setting things up. And like anything, the more you do it, the more experience you have in the NFL fire
The
and
better
dealing
you
with
can
different
get.
situations, the better you're going to get. So,
And
I
knowing Kirk and his relationship and
yeah,
how that can get better over time, we have noticed, I'm going a little off script here, how in our tempo offense,
yes,
right, they cut the microphone off at 15 seconds, right, on the play clock. Well, you're noticing we're snapping a lot before that. We're not huddling and we're going up to the line, and there's certain calls by Kirk. But during that time, up to that point, he's in Kirk's ear. So he's helping Kirk with, hey, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing that. That whole ability and the communication there is going to get better and better, which should go to increasing production over the long run. I think they did it in L.A. It worked in L.A. And I think, and you're seeing it, it's not as well worked this year, but you're seeing it for us, and I think it's a good thing because I don't think we're going to regress. We're going to come off of the bye and regress. We're not going to hit Zimmer getting pissed off at everybody and right, and we're going to have shit games from now on. I think we're going to stay where we are and get better, and that is a good thing.
it sure is. And I
Which
do like the tempo stuff that the Vikings have been doing. We wondered about that before going into the season, whether
mhm,
they would speed up things, speed up the
and they
offense, and
have.
try to go no huddle, and they have, and they've been very effective when they've done it. They weren't able to get into it at all against Miami because they never got any long drives going. So that was a bit of a bummer, that whole Miami offensive game plan. But we got to move on. We got the W. Got to move on and get
Yeah.
better.
And I do like their new huddle formation, where the offensive linemen face forward looking at the defense. Um, Makes for great pictures. Anyways, now to our favorite part of the show, Lake Monster Brewing. Yes, Andrew, finish well. Yes, yes, yes. Carter, question of the day: would you trade Kirk Cousins in our next two first round for Trevor Lawrence?
Well, I think with all those questions is I don't see the Jacksonville trading for Kirk,
Oh
so
yeah.
it's really, I guess, in a blue sky type thing. I probably, I don't know, I probably would make that trade. Be getting a
Well,
young QB, but the cost would be very expensive.
uh-huh. And it would take a lot of Lake Monster beers to make to enjoy it even more. And that's where we're going. Today, this week on tap, they've added SK Coffee Belgian Ale, which sounds absolutely wonderful because I love coffee and I love beer and I love
In
whiskey
goblets, no less.
and goblets. Yes, it looks great. 6.0, right? Looks good. In the pints, they uh, moved down the depth charge juicy IPA, which is one of their staples. Absolutely outstanding, 6.2. And they moved their milk stout down to the pints so you can get them there. They also have, as a reminder, the Monster Bash on October 29th. You still have time to buy tickets. Tickets are $9. You have live music. The whole thing starts at noon. You have live music at 1, 2:30, 4:30, 6:30, and it goes on till over past 11 o'clock at night. There are eight one-of-a-kind beers that they'll have that nobody's heard of, right? The brand
Mm.
new experimental that you can enjoy out of their cask cave, along with their hot apple cider ale, which is supposedly fantastic, and more. You want to make a memory? Go there. And then the day
Or
after, I
lose
think,
some.
yes, or in my
Or
case,
not
lose some.
remember, or not remember, I think. So.
And then I think it's the day after the day, or the day after that, they have, I think it's the 30th, they have a Halloween themed get together for the kids starting at noon the next day with costume parties and all sorts of other stuff. right? And it's all about they're one of us. They want to make memories for you, whether it be family, friends, whatever. Enjoy them. They're right across the river in St. Paul. You can't beat them. They sell their beer across the Vikings viewing area. Try them. They are absolutely fantastic. Lake Monster beer. Hey, you know Dave. I love my beer. I love my whiskey, right? And I love my art. Those are probably the three most important things in my life, besides my family. And Lake Monster beer makes fantastic beer, which Darren can now attest to.
I can. I've had some of their products, and they were excellent.
Now on to theme 3. You wanted to talk about this young man, Patrick Jones.
We've hit our quick hitters, a portion of the show, David, and yes, Patrick Jones did want to give him a shout out today because during the preseason, when he was playing a lot, as were all the Vikings backups, because the starters weren't playing at all. I thought that he was looking like a guy that was he was developing in a second year after a very quiet rookie year. He was looking, I thought, encouraging. I was seeing encouraging signs. He was being noticeable in those games, creating some pressures. I thought that he might end up being in the new Ed Donatel 3-4 system as a stand-up outside rushing linebacker and rushing the passer with with not his hand no longer in the dirt, that he was going to possibly become the first, or like he was going to take snaps potentially away from DJ Wonnum. But as the season went on, as the games went on, his snap count was dwindling down. He wasn't making much of an impact, and it was looking like he was going to get lost in the shuffle. Well, last week against Miami, DJ Wonnum, he's ruled out because he gets sick a couple of nights before the game. Can't play. He was a guy, and so Patrick Jones had to take up and was given a much larger role in the defense this week, and that was partly because of Wonnum getting hurt, also partly because it was so hot and humid in Miami that the Vikings rolled a lot of guys on the defensive line and the linebackers, so guys didn't get exhausted and dehydrated. Well, Patrick Jones ended up getting his first 2 sacks of his NFL career in that game. He had 4 pass pressures, so he took advantage of the opportunity. 37 defensive snaps last week, which is twice as much as he's ever had before in a game. And I'm really happy for Patrick Jones because I'm hoping that kind of performance and the more snaps gives him the confidence to take his game up to another level, and that he can start getting a few more snaps in the game than he had been previously, even when DJ Wonnum does come back. Because I think that, again, when you look at load management and the health of players, if the Vikings can get a few more snaps and effective snaps from a guy like Patrick Jones and DJ Wonnum, and take a little bit of the load off of Za'Darius Smith and Danielle Hunter, and so that and that there isn't a big drop off in performance when Jones and Wonnum are in the game, and when Za'Darius Smith and Danielle Hunter aren't in the game. I think that's going to be important, David, later on in the season, keeping everybody fresh when hopefully the Vikings are making a push not just for the NFC North title, but maybe even the number 1 seed in the NFC, because we've got concerns about the Vikings' depth, right?
Right.
We're not really sure about the backups and how, what kind of performance they can give us. So it's going to be huge. It's huge when a guy like Patrick Jones shows up like he did last week against Miami and plays really well. And I hope that that's a sign of things to come for him and maybe a few of the other Vikings backups, because again, at some point we're going to have a key starter who's going to be out a game or maybe 2, and somebody like Patrick Jones might have to get in there and play a starter's role, and we want them to come in there and play effectively, not be a liability.
Well, I do believe you have DJ Wonnum usually backs up Danielle Hunter, and Patrick Jones usually backs up Za'Darius Smith. I do believe that when they come in, because they've both been playing well, you're not seeing a humongous drop-off. right? Last year when backups came in, it was like falling off a cliff.
Mhm.
This year when backups come in, you're not seeing that. You're seeing, hey, we're still getting production. They're still getting sacks. They're still getting pressures. And that is absolutely wonderful. And as long as everybody stays healthy, you get to spell Za'Darius Smith and Danielle Hunter when they need it. And you're still not dropping off in pressures. And that this year, I think, is a wonderful thing. I wish
It
it was
is.
the case across the board, all
Yes.
positions. But at edge rusher, I think that is, I think we've caught something that we like. And both, whether it be Wonnum or Jones, are young, right?
Yes.
So we're going to have them for a while. Yes, we can have Za'Darius Smith. He's under contract. We can have Hunter. He's under contract. But it's got to be one of the fattest with a PH spots we have. And it's good to see that we're not getting a huge downgrade when they come in. Now, we need to groom them, get them better and better, and then we're going to have to wait until, they come up with their own contracts, etc. And will they replace Za'Darius or replace Danielle or what it's going to cost to keep them? But we're not there yet. But just the fact that we have them and they're being quality is a good thing. We wish it was the case across the board on the team. But hey, you only go where you can go. And this is a start, and Kwesi's going to work on that after this. But it's a good start. Now, that brings us on to your next quick hitter.
Speaking of outside pass rushing linebackers, like Za'Darius Smith, the Z-Man. I think that this free agent addition has worked out pretty nicely for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, David. Some of the other moves he's made, whether particularly on the trades, whether it's trading for Ross Blacklock from the Texans, Jalen Rager from the Eagles, trading down and to the last pick in the first round and getting Lewis Seen. None of those moves have really worked out for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah yet. But this one, signing
Definitely
Za'Darius Smith
has.
as a free agent, has definitely worked out. Last week against Miami, both he and Danielle Hunter had the kind of performance. They were dominant. They had the kind of performance that I think Viking fans were hoping for when we signed Smith and when we knew Danielle Hunter was going to be healthy and going back and switching to the outside linebacker role in the Donatel 3-4. Za'Darius Smith had 2 sacks against the Dolphins last week and 11. That's right, 11 pressures. That's a lot. but
That is a lot.
but uh, uh, the thing about Za'Darius Smith is that I think it's been getting lost a bit this season so far because the Vikings' defensive performance has not been up to snuff. It's been a bit disappointing. They've given up gobs and gobs of yards, not points, mind you, but a lot of yardage, and that's been a point of consternation for Vikings fans. But game in and game out, I think Za'Darius Smith has been doing what we needed him to do. He's been maybe not hasn't created a ton of sacks in some games, but he's been when the Vikings have been struggling creating pressure, pass pressure on the quarterbacks. He's been the one guy that's been doing it consistently, I think, and right now. Even with the Vikings struggles rushing the passer, except for last week against Miami, Za'Darius Smith has 5.5 sacks. That's second in the NFL. He's got 29 quarterback pressures. That's also second in the NFL. So Za'Darius Smith has been as advertised for the Vikings so far through 6 games. Excellent signing. He's been playing very well. Lots of tackles for loss, too, on running plays. And the thing that kind of surprises me, Dave, maybe not you, is that even though I've seen him play, particularly when he was with that team from Wisconsin, I kind of was expecting a guy who would be like, uh, he'd be like a on the outside, beat guys with speed or with he's been
Right.
in the league a long time, so he would use a variety of pass rush moves to
Right.
to win.
But
And
finesse type moves.
yeah, I get not, but and he's doing that some of the times. But man, this guy wins a lot with power. If you watch, he like wins consistently with bull rushes. Like he just runs over offensive linemen who are either way the same as him or way more than him, and it's impressive. It's fun to watch, and it's also been very effective for Za'Darius Smith. So that's a guy. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
gotta wanted to give him a shout out because he's been excellent for us so far, even if a lot of other Viking defensive players have not been.
Mm-hmm. John, you asked, what do you think about guys starting the game with 5, 17, 18, 19, 83 on the field? The game while going up tempo. Um, oops, didn't mean to do that. And put a few TDs on the board. Yes, I want the greatest show on turf version 2. We talked about that earlier. Yes, we sort of expected that more production. Um, but we have what we have so far, and we talk it down to communication. Communication gets better. I think as they learn everything, they will get better. Purple Haze, golf clap. Now, Darren, you talked about Za'Darius and all those great numbers. He is number 11 in PFF amongst edge rushers. That's edge rushers. That's not just outside linebackers. Because you got to
Yeah.
remember, in the 3-4, not only do they have edge rushing responsibility, they have pass coverage responsibility. He is number 11 and edge rushing. That is outstanding. He's going to do nothing but get better. And like we said, we have depth. Yay. And it's doing well. I love what Za'Darius Smith has done so far. I like that he's best friends with this guy, Danielle Hunter, and that they play off each other. Laurel and Hardy sort of deal. You have Za'Darius is the more gregarious guy. Danielle's the quieter guy, the straight man, but they get along great. Za'Darius is doing an absolutely fantastic job. He is obviously a vocal leader of this year's Minnesota Vikings defense, and we want to keep it up. Kwesi did a great job on this one. Got to hand it to him. Unlike all those other ones, Blacklock, yada yada, that haven't seen much time. But got to give it to Za'Darius.
Big time.
So far. And that is it, unless I missed some notes.
Well, I did want to. The only other thing was that one quick hitter was the talk about. There's been some talk about Odell Beckham Jr. Maybe going to the Vikings now because he is due to
Mm-hmm.
come back from his ACL injury in November, kind of late in the season. But there have been some, it hasn't been. I don't know how credible these things are, but different beat writers have mentioned it, and there's a few other spots where he could be landing too that have been reportedly interested in Odell Beckham Jr. But I did want to talk about that because when I was thinking about it, it when you look at what the 49ers did this week,
Mm-hmm.
they took a big move, took a big shot. We're starting by trading for Christian McCaffrey. Some teams now, as we get into like the middle-ish part of the season, if they think they're contenders, they might be looking to take their shot too and acquire somebody halfway through the season to um, to enhance their
Mm-hmm.
playoff or Super Bowl push. The 49ers have been playing a little bit, have not played up to their expectations so far. A lot of that has to do with injuries, I think, and their quarterback situation. But uh, that's a really good roster that could make a Super Bowl run if they get healthy, and getting Christian McCaffrey could be a huge plus for them. So, are the Vikings going to take a shot? Are they going to make a move? Odell Beckham Jr. would certainly qualify as taking a shot and getting a move. When I was thinking about it initially, David, I wasn't too jazzed about the idea because he can be a volatile personality. The Vikings right now seem to have a good thing going, team chemistry. It's a kumbaya going 5-1 helps with that. But if you bring in a new guy like OBJ and he wants the ball, that could kind of mess things up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to cut into the playing time, particularly I think of KJ Osborne. And I don't know with a young guy like that how that all shake out. But as I thought about it more, I thought, well, okay, sure, there's that risk, but also, we're not getting a lot of explosive production from KJ Osborne right now. Not getting a lot of explosive production from Adam Thielen. Maybe you add Odell Beckham Jr. there. I think, even at 30,
I'm
he
about to
can be
say, but
effective.
he's up there too.
Yeah.
And coming off an Achilles, are you sure you're going to get that? Or is he going to be slower?
It would be a gamble if the price was right. I'd be willing to try. I think, and he last year he was with the Rams, mid-season edition. He did make an impact there, and one of the reasons there's connections being made is because Kevin O'Connell was the offensive coordinator at that time, right? So uh, connecting the dots, you think he's got a relationship with Odell Beckham Jr. already. Maybe he'd be interested in bringing OBJ here, and that OBJ would be interested in going to Minnesota because they're talking about because we're 5-1 and we're a contender. So just something I wanted to bring up. I would be supportive of bringing OBJ here, and I don't know how long it would take him to learn the playbook. That would be an issue too. Money has been mentioned below, and that we don't have it, but I don't know how much Odell Beckham Jr. is willing to play for half a
Right.
season either.
True.
So
Purple Haze alluded to OBJ getting a bag of money. That comes from he was talking to a fan down in, I think, in an airport, according to Score North, that he plans to go to either Buffalo or Kansas City, whoever gives them the bag of money. Minnesota was not on that list when he talked to that particular fan. Jonathan reiterated we don't have the cap space. No, we do not at the particular time. They would have to massage something and convert bonus to or convert whatever guaranteed to bonus or however they do it to make room for that. But as of right now, we have less than like $100,000. That's not much. They would have to literally do something.
call out the credit card.
I have mixed feelings whether I want OBJ because of the reasons you stated. Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, I think they're good. I think they can step up if we use them, but they got to be thrown to, is the deal. And then you're going to talk about OBJ is going to want to take, because he is the personality is, he wants balls thrown to him. Well, those are balls taken away from whether it be Adam or KJ that can deal with it, or JJ that is like, you're not going to throw a ball to OBJ when JJ is as equally as open. You're going to throw it to JJ because Justin Jefferson is better. So,
Sure, but that didn't stop Cooper Kupp from catching 200 balls
well,
last year,
true.
right?
Yeah, very true. But I don't trust coming off an Achilles injury that usually takes, even though they can play a year later, it usually takes 2 years to get better. I don't see it happening, but it's an interesting thing that's out in the Viking sphere. So we'll see
Well,
what
yeah,
happens.
it's one of the Vikings roster has been very steady the past 6 months, right? Or 6 games. Like we haven't had to. There's been no talk about adding anybody or trading anybody, and of course, why try to fix what isn't broken? But
Exactly.
so this was kind of the first thing, and he's a big name. Hey, again, gives us something to talk about. I don't think it's happening either, but if it did happen, I'm just saying I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Tom. I agree with you. Our receivers are getting open, and we expect the receiving game, the passing game, to get better soon. That's what we talked about, the communication and the whole thing. We never did get to the offensive line, which is okay.
We got next week. We can do
Yes,
that
we've
next week,
got
David.
next week, and but I think that helps the passing as well. We'll do that next week, and until then, what do we say there, Darren?
We always say, Skull Vikings, who aren't going to lose tomorrow.
That's right. Enjoy your Sunday, everybody. No stress on us. Go Vikings! Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite aggregator. And a special shout out goes to our partners, the Daily Norseman, where the best Vikings content can be found, and to Lake Monster Brewing, home of the best beer in Minnesota. Skol, everybody.